You are listening to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences.
I'm even more grateful for the comeback, right? The comeback is it's then mountains above where you even anticipated being. But the running journey, if you put all of these things in a line on a running journey, it's like you kind of look back and you're like, wow, like the universe tried to derail me like 100 times. And I think that anybody who chases the marathon distance will go through that. The more finish lines they go after too. It's like, no, it's just this art of the reset. It's being flexible. My dad has this saying, semper gumby, which is just always flexible. And it has truly become a family motto of like, it just is what it is. You move around that. You bend over whatever rules or red tape or universe adversity is going to get thrown in your way, and on you go. My name is Lauren Nutter. I am a mom, a runner, and a small business owner. I own Race Day Rangers, and I'm very excited to be running the 2026 130th Boston Marathon as a charity runner for Community Rowing Incorporated as the final of my 6-star.
Yes, this episode features marathon runner Lauren Nutter, who has a lot going on, with many big goals coming to fruition around this year's Boston Marathon, which will take place on Monday, April 20th. It's a story of finish lines, new beginnings, and deeply difficult challenges along the way. Lauren's is a comeback story in which she does indeed embrace that Semper Gumby motto. Oh, I love that one. But before you hear more from Lauren, I want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, this is the episode before the Boston Marathon. And as part of the Boston Marathon festivities over the weekend, I once again get to co-host with my friends Julie Sapper and Lisa Levin of the Run Farther and Faster podcast. I get to co-host a panel with them for the 5th year in a row. We will be on the live stage at the Boston Marathon Expo. And this year, we are co-hosting a panel called Elites Who Lead by Example. And we will be doing that on Saturday, April 18th at noon on the live stage. And we get to have on our panel Mary Nguji Cooper and Lisa Waitman, both of whom are going to be running in the pro field. And they have also done some incredible things outside of running. And we're going to talk to them about that. We're going to talk to them about how they balance motherhood and careers outside of running, in addition to being elite level, international caliber racers. Mary is the founder of the Nala Track Club in Kenya, and Lisa is a banking executive in Australia. So we're going to talk to them about all things balancing their many responsibilities, their leadership skills, and of course, their running. So please join us. Again, we will be on the live stage on Saturday, April 18th at noon. It is free and open to the public. Just give yourself a little bit of time to get in, but please come join us. All right, now let's get into Lauren's story, which has so many interesting threads, and I'm excited for you to hear about all of it. Yeah, there is just a lot coming all together over this year's Boston Marathon. So first up, Lauren Nutter will be running Boston for the very first time, and that has been a goal that she has had in earnest since 2019. Between then and now, Lauren discovered the majors. At the time, there were 6 major marathons. Now there are 7. Lauren went after the 6 stars, they call it, going after your 6 stars, doing all the 6 major marathons. Those are in London, Berlin, Chicago, New York City, Tokyo, and yes, Boston. The 7th one is Sydney, and that was just recently added. But at the time when Lauren was setting her goals, there were the 6, and she decided she wanted to go after that goal. And so, when Lauren crosses the finish line on April 20th, she will not only have run the Boston Marathon, but also completed her 6-star journey. In addition to all things running, Lauren also created her business, Race Day Rangers, as part of her running journey. It began with a simple sticker that Lauren created to help raise funds for her charity entry to Boston, and that has grown into the business that it is today, which features marathon-themed stickers, patches, flags, and more. And it was actually through people asking if Lauren did other races, that is, if she made themed items for other marathons. That is how she learned about the 6-star journey. So it's all interwoven. And yes, there's more. So if you have been to the Boston Marathon Expo over the last few years, you'll probably have noticed that there aren't that many vendors outside of the main sponsors and a sort of strange collection of non-running related companies. I think a couple years ago, there was a furniture store that had a booth. Anyway, this is by design, in my opinion. Not a great design. It's part of the sponsorship contracts. I don't know all the details, but what I do know is that the expo is much less robust than it used to be. So many of the fun, small and large businesses that we used to see there are no longer there. And it especially impacted those small businesses that don't have regular storefronts, and it's kind of their big moment to have a space in front of so many runners, and also a time for us runners and fans to see the fun new things that are out there that people are providing for the running community. And indeed, Lauren's business, Race Day Rangers, is one of those smaller brands. She had a booth at the Boston Marathon Expo in the past, as you will hear, and she is no longer allowed to have a booth like so many other vendors that used to show there. Now, for some of the big brands, they just get pop-up spaces nearby, and they run events and have their products available to all of the runners walking around. The problem for small businesses, of course, is that this can be extremely expensive, especially in the area around where all the festivities are going on. It's right around the finish, the expo is there, and a lot of businesses go over to a street called Newbury Street. Lauren had attempted to get a space last year, and as she told me, she literally got laughed off the phone by a couple of real estate people. But she was determined, and she teamed up with other women who had running-related businesses, and they also all happen to be moms, and they are going to have their own pop-up, and it's called Brand House, and it's Brandhaus, Brand House. And it does feature Lauren's company, Race Day Rangers, with their marathon-themed patches, flags, stickers, and more. In addition, Brand House features Running with Grace. Those are mantra bracelets, Pen and Paces, which are custom name bib kits, shoe bags, and more. There's 26 Diamond. They sell running jewelry. There's Running Peas, athletic apparel for kids, and Swift Running. They're carbon-plated running shoes. There's also a full calendar of activities and activations. And of course, look to the show notes for links to information about Brand House. Know that the pop-up store will be open Friday through Sunday over Marathon weekend, and they will be on Newbury Street. They'll be at 332 Newbury Street, and that is between Massachusetts Avenue, or Mass Ave, and Hereford Street. So go check them out. Whew! So, yes, there is a lot. And there's one final thing that I want to mention about Lauren's story before we hear from her. Lauren does mention in her story experiencing a miscarriage. And I want to take a moment to thank her for being so open about talking about this. And I also want to acknowledge that miscarriages are far more common than most people realize. And they are really sad and painful experiences. And a lot of people end up isolating and not talking about them. So thank you so much to Lauren for opening up about this, because she feels very strongly about the fact that it's important to be able to talk about these things. I also just want to point out that miscarriages are a natural part of the reproductive process. And this is actually something Lauren's friends and family, as well as her medical team, assured her of. And still, miscarriages are awful. So again, thank you to Lauren for talking about this experience. Yeah, she has been through some ups and some downs. It has been a journey. All right, there is one small detail Lauren mentions, and that is a rollator. I had no idea what this was. It is a walker. So yeah, a lot happens in this story. And now we are ready to hear it. So now, here to tell her story, beginning with how her journey to running 6 marathons all around the world first kicked off, is Lauren Nutter.
That story all begins on a boat in 2016 when I met my husband and fell in love. That was in June. I was still chasing an equestrian career, training horses. I actually wound up moving to Europe later that summer. I put him on pause and said, I don't know if this, I've got to go chase big dreams. And visa issues brought me back home very quickly. And so by December, I found myself back stateside, and he and I were very much a thing at the time. And I said, you know what, I'll give New England a try. And my Christmas present that year was a one-way ticket. And I guess that's when I landed in New England and haven't haven't turned around since. And he picked me up at the airport and was driving me around Boston and said, "Oh yeah, here's the finish line." And he said it so casually, but it was my first time in Boston. And I was like, hold on, we need to see this thing. I've dreamed about this. Since I was 7, I have always watched and heard about this very big Boston Marathon. And now all of a sudden it's like my new home turf. And so yeah, got out middle of winter and was just kind of having this moment of reverence at the marathon. And you could tell he was just like a Boston native. He's like, this is just not this. Okay, well, now we're going to dinner. And I was like, no, I think we should, this is ceremonious. We need more of a moment here for this thing. And it kind of just, I kind of just had this silent moment to myself, all right, I'll be back. We're going to do this. It just felt like a new chapter that I needed to go after eventually. And we finally decided to chase that chapter not that long after. Got through the wedding and wedding planning, and I got sorted into my millennial house of let's do endurance sports. The running joke is, you go through get married, and then you're like, all right, well, what am I going to do? And it's like plants, or it's pets, or it's reading, or it's endurance sports and marathoning. And that becomes your millennial identity. And so that was this transition of welcome to Boston. It was kind of a, and it's very Boston that it was a little bit of a rude transition right into the middle of winter, ta-da, you live here now. And the running journey has truly come a little bit full circle from that first trip home from the airport. I think I signed up for my first marathon in 2017 and showed up tremendously untrained and probably just in the delusional category. I don't think we've lost the delusion. It's quite fun to function there. But I survived running Newport through a hurricane and got done with that. And, delusion again says we should probably just try and do that again a little bit better this time. More prep and, maybe let's do some more training mileage. And fall of 2019, we had just gotten married. I was like, you know what? I need the next big thing. You come off of this huge high. And I was like, let's go for Boston. And that was what led me to discovering all of the accoutrements and how to get into Boston. And I was like, well, charity running is definitely where I'm at. Definitely not a fast runner in the qualifying sense. Like a BQ, I think, is going to be a lifelong achievement if we get there. I might need quite a few more birthdays. And so getting into Boston otherwise was a charity. I'm going to need a charity bib. So I started doing all this research and trying to find one that really, it has to mean something to you. The marketer in me and the salesperson in me says, I can't convince people to help support me if I'm not also cheerleading them. And when I found Community Rowing Incorporated, I was like, I really love everything they're about. And I'm a big rower as a cross-training mechanism, so it felt like a really good fit. And they were so excited. I was so excited to have them say yes when I applied for a 2020 marathon bib. And I just dove straight into all things Boston. I felt like I've never really stopped bleeding blue and yellow since that phone call.
Lauren channeled her excitement for running her first Boston Marathon and raising money for Community Rowing Incorporated into a crafty idea, with the goal of getting a lot of small donations.
I thought, I can do this small increments at a time. I was going to go grassroots. I wanted to touch as many people. I thought that a blanket approach, instead of trying to go after, bigger type corporate sponsorships, would be the way to do it. And so I designed a sticker. And I think that is kind of an inflection point in the whole journey. When I look back at where I'm telling this story from where I'm sitting now, because that sticker has since raised, I think, more than $15,000 or $20,000 for charity. That sticker really kind of kicked it off. And at the time, it was a $6 sticker, and I was doing everything I could. I started an Instagram. I was like, I'm going to go from zero to whatever I can turn it into as fast as I can. And I was going to invite every single person I could imagine or meet and to buy a sticker and support this journey. That sticker, like, over time, just became these requests for, like, hey, do you do this other races? Do you do this other, marathon? And that was truly kind of what introduced me to this 6-star journey. I didn't have any idea before I got into Boston that it was a part of this other series. And I read about the series. I did way more research on that. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is for me. This is it. Here we go. And the sticker turned into flag. I pivoted the design and I made some flags that matched. And I thought these are the type of products I wanted, but I didn't see. And I wanted to have my water bottle and my bumper like just dressed up and celebrating these huge achievements, and fly a flag out front for when it was Boston season. And that truly has now turned into an entire line of merchandise and a small business that does nothing but fund charity racing for myself and for others with a scholarship fund that I just give away whatever I can afford in a year. And so when I'm not fundraising for something, I'm putting out scholarship application for others and other charity runners to apply for funds. Because the charity route, for a lot of people, a charity bib can be very intimidating. Like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to raise all this money? How am I going to... Most people are not wired to be the marketing and sales that comes quite naturally to me. And I thought, if this scholarship makes it easier for one person to say, okay, I think I can do that. That's where I feel like I've won. And helping others get to finish lines and helping others champion their causes. I've lost count at this point. I probably do need to go back and quantify how much we've given to organizations all over the world. In 2024, Race Day funded someone's entire charity bib for Tokyo. And so, like, making bibs possible, making finish lines possible, making others say, you know what, that's really intimidating. I found somebody who's going to make this smidge easier or more capable. That's the space where I want to live in. We are raising funds. We were getting ready, and a very fateful day in March, we all got the notification in our first 2 weeks of the pandemic that we were going to be a September Boston. And I went out that day and I ate my feelings. I got fast food and I went to Home Goods and I got this huge coffee mug. And this coffee mug still lives in my cabinet. And that coffee mug it just says, make it happen. And that has become, it was already a mantra that I love and have leaned into, but I can and I will. That's the other message on this coffee mug. And it was like, all right, well, it's delayed, but we'll get there. And then, of course, 2020 took the whole world off its casters, for sure. It was a deep pause. I think running served a very different purpose that year for a lot of people. I am still gutted by everything that the pandemic did, but it did introduce a lot of people to this sport. It saved a lot of people who were stuck otherwise, literally, figuratively. And we saw that in the years following, where all of a sudden a whole bunch more people were qualified because they had time to train, they had time to get faster, they had time to dedicate towards, something to pass the time. And so that kind of year of survival was a big reset. And obviously 2020 took everything else with it. We were canceled and turned virtual. So I ran the 2020 Boston Marathon on Long Island, Maine. And it was a place where we, at the time, could escape to. And it was 5 laps around this tiny island off the coast of Maine. And when it came time for the next Boston, like, okay, you're ready to actually do it the next year, I said, this was a lot. We fundraised, and that was still the end of the road. You fundraised, and it was done. It was not rolled over. You had to start over and do it all again, same amount or more, now that you have so many more people interested in being a part of Boston. And I said, I got into these other world majors now that I put this kind of journey on the map. And I said, I'm going to come back to Boston when I also feel like I haven't exhausted my friends and family and all of these people who have supported me already. So Boston kind of fades to the back a little bit from a participant, from a runner standpoint. But I went out and did Chicago and New York the next year. And then the year after, I got a lottery ticket to Berlin. And so I signed up for a charity bib for London. And so that was, again, I knocked those out a week apart. And that left Tokyo and then Boston. And I looked at that equation and I said, well, I'm not going to do this and not finish on home turf. Coming back to marathoning has been a very long journey, for sure. I went to the Berlin and London marathons, having found out the week prior that I was pregnant. And my doctors at the time were excited. They said, if you've trained and done all of this planning and preparation, then you can go and you can race. Just listen to your body, right? That's the advice they give us. And those marathons were hellish. I was hours beyond my ideal finish times. I was very grateful that London was one of the longest open finish times, because that was like a 6.5 hour endeavor. Beyond 10K, I was like nauseous beyond belief and just really on the struggle bus. And they just said, you're probably in for some of those first trimester feels. But a week after I came home, I found out that I had been running while miscarrying. And so it was just this very bittersweet experience of, accomplishing something big and then going through this devastating loss of your first pregnancy. I was very grateful to have access to Massachusetts healthcare, and they took care of me, but I still had complications. So it was several months of bed rest and recovery, a couple of procedures in order to get me back on the right track. And then I took Race Day Rangers to an expo, the Boston Marathon Expo, and that was in 2023. And on Marathon Monday, I found out we were pregnant again. And then I gave birth on New Year's Eve of 2023. Except on the way out, my son dislocated my pelvis. So I was, 2 days postpartum, and I had this tiny, no manual human in my arms, and I could not walk. There's no surgical procedure. There's nothing for them to do. They tell you to take some Tylenol for the pain, and it could be 2 months. It could be 18 months. It's a very underdiagnosed SPD is the acronym for it, but it is the separation of the pubic bone in the front. And so it creates this equal opposite pressure on your tailbone behind you, and ultimately I slept in a recliner for 2.5 months, 3 months before I could actually lay flat and get in and out of stuff. So my son was a Velcro baby through and through. He lived and sat on my chest for that entire time. He was my little kangaroo, and we got through it. But I was on a rollator for a long time and had to really do a lot to my psyche to tell myself, you got to slow down. This was like this forced rest and recovery. I was still deeply chasing a huge corporate career as a VP of marketing at the time. So by April, we took the business back to the Boston Marathon Expo. I started traveling for work. It was July of that year. I did a 1-mile road race with my son in the stroller. And it just felt like that whole time I really didn't give myself permission to be slow about things. All I could see was where I should be and how fast I should be moving. But in hindsight, it's you don't really oftentimes know the extent of an injury until you're all the way through it. And yeah, it was definitely closer to that 12 to 18 month mark for me, as far as being able to say I'm comfortable each day and off of NSAIDs on a daily regimen. And I did not know when I finished those marathons in 2022 that was going to be the last time I ran that distance or saw that distance until 2026. But once I got back to it, I was like, all right, we gotta take care of Tokyo. And that was on March 1st, just over a month ago. And I'm back with community rowing to finish what I started here in 2026. So 7 years later, however you want to calculate that, we're gonna bring it home. In my household, I like to lead us with the phrase, you got to use your whole ass. We don't half-ass anything. And if you can imagine a scenario where you think you're doing too much, we're going to do that exact scenario. And so, yes, running for charity this year, doing all the training was not enough. And last year, my small business did not go to the expo. They were not inviting exterior vendors if you were not an official sponsor. So I had taken Race Day Rangers to the 2023 and the 2024 expo as an official vendor partner, and it was a complete game changer for us. We loved connecting with the runners, and everyone was so excited to see us there and really kind of wrap their arms around the business and gave me so many ideas for the future and for the products. It was incredible. And then in 2025, I just was kind of wandering aimlessly around the finish line because I was like, I couldn't at the time find a space to pop us up fast enough. And I said, you know what, in 2026, we're not going to miss Boston. And so I got in to be a charity runner this year with CRI. And then I was like, all right, project next is like, we're going to do Boston with Race Day at the same time. And we're going to find a space to make it happen and do our own kind of pop-up expo situation if we have to. And so I went to a couple of the other businesses that I had been working alongside and collaborating with over the last couple of years. And I said, are you guys in if we need to find our own space? And it was a resounding yes. So I am so thrilled to announce that we have started a pop-up collective of women's owned small businesses. And we signed our own lease and we popped up our own space, and we're going to be on Newbury Street for all of Marathon weekend. We've had tons of other small businesses just like us, female owned, who heard about us because of social or some other PR move, and they're like, how do I get involved for next year? So at this point, our roster is long and growing, and I'm eager for the opportunity to prove that this space could be 4 times bigger next year, because I think there needs to be a spot for makers and for nonprofits and for these smaller women-owned businesses in the running space that deserve a storefront and they deserve access to this audience, because most of these founders will tell you they loved running and they needed something that was flexible enough to let them feel like they were being a good mom and managing a household or managing a career. And so they pivoted and created these small businesses to celebrate the thing they love, but to create an opportunity for themselves that they could be flexible, right? Or make more money, or be able to just celebrate and wrap their arms around this audience of runners just like them. And here we are, a collective. We're all moms, and we've all started something and grown it from scratch. And this is the type of audience that I've found over and over again. Runners are like, we want to see more of you. We want to support you. And we're so glad you're here. And so I'm very elated to have co-created this space full of businesses like this. And I'm very excited for the future. I have to really limit myself from doing too much visualization of that last right hand, left hand turn onto that finish line. I have trained on pretty much every other piece of the course because it's so iconic. I have been not yet a participant of IRL Boston, and yet every year, even as an expo vendor or just as a spectator, I wind up at the finish line and I just have this moment where I am losing it, imagining what that is going to be like. And I think, honestly, it's probably going to be 10 times more powerful than anything I can even imagine, because you couldn't have told me in 2019 you're actually not even going to get there this year or next. It's going to be after all of these mountains get moved and all of these challenges get crossed off. And by the way, you're going to become a mom. And you're going to have your son there to cheer you on also. So to think about what it means to even get to a start line, and then to survive a marathon distance, and to get to that final where you know exactly how many steps are left as you're looking at Boylston. No, it's very hard for me to do that visualization without coming to tears. And I went to Tokyo in March, very much all business, because I was like, listen, I've declared Boston as 6th, but it's not 6th unless you check off number 5. Like, you have a job to do here, and you've really, we're not going to put a cart before a horse here, but like, you're going to bet on yourself. But I got through the Tokyo Marathon finish line, and there were no tears. It was just power. I was like, yeah, we did it. I did it. And I think that it's not going to be the same in Boston. I think there's going to be tears and probably screaming. It's hard to imagine what you're going to do. I should probably practice the finish line pose so that I don't just collapse or something embarrassing. But no, it's otherworldly, and it all starts with saying, you know what, I think we're going to try for that.
That simple start led to such an incredible today. But of course, not without many challenges along the way. Thank you, Lauren, so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. And I wish you all the best for the store, for the marathon, for finishing your 6-star journey, and for everything that is to come. I hope to see the Brand House grow and grow. Now, I know you, like me, are going to want to keep up with Lauren and get more information about Brand House. So look to the show notes, and there will be links to how you can do that. And there will be a link to information about the panel that I will be co-hosting with my friends Julie and Lisa on Saturday, April 18th at the Boston Marathon Expo on the live stage at noon, featuring Mary Nguji Cooper and Lisa Waitman, 2 incredible runners, businesswomen, and moms. And they're going to be talking about all of their leadership skills and their expertise and their experiences. So I cannot wait for that. Please come join us if you are in town. And also, if you aren't in town, we are recording that conversation, and it will come out as an episode on both Women's Running Stories and Run Farther and Faster. So you will not miss it, but it will be really fun to be there in person. So if you are around, please come join us. And of course, for everybody running Boston this year, I really hope you have a blast. I will be out there cheering you on. So have fun. And that does bring me to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate you coming and listening to these stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next week, I do wish you healthy, joyful, resilient strides forward.
Women's Running. Women's Running Stories.